They never found Eleanor's body. They found her outline, pressed into the plaster of flat 302, as if she had tried to push through the wall from the inside, or as if something inside the wall had pulled her in. The police said it was structural damage. The building manager said it was damp. Mr. Aldridge said nothing, because Mr. Aldridge had heard the knocking too, and in Blackwood building everyone learns the same rule sooner or later. If something knocks from inside the wall, you don't knock back. Eleanor knocked back. Eleanor didn't expect to sleep. New places always felt wrong to her. Different ceiling height, different air pressure, a different kind of breathing. Yes, buildings breathe, old ones especially. Blackwood building had been standing since the late 1950s. Concrete ribs, hollow sections, void spaces no one had mapped properly in decades. She was lying on her back, staring at the ceiling, when the clock read 1:47 a.m. That was when she heard it. Scratch. Soft. Careful. Not frantic. Not random. Scratch. Pause. Scratch. She didn't move. Mouse, she told herself. Old buildings have mice. Old buildings expand. Old buildings swallow sound. Scratch. Pause. Scratch. It was rhythmic. Too rhythmic. She held her breath. The sound stopped. She let the air out slowly. The sound came back, matching her breathing. Inhale, scratch, exhale, scratch. It was the first moment she felt it. Not fear. Awareness. Something was measuring her. She rolled onto her side, pressed her ear against the pillow. The sound stopped completely. Total silence for 10 seconds. Then, knock. Not a scratch. A knock. 3 times. Measured. Knock. 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 From inside the wall. And Eleanor understood something instinctively. It wasn't trying to get out. It was checking if she was in. The next morning, she made the mistake of mentioning it. Mr. Aldridge lived in flat 301. He had lived there for 23 years. He knew every sound the building made. He could tell when rain was coming by the creak of the stairwell window. He could tell which resident was walking down the corridor just by their footsteps. So when Eleanor casually mentioned the scratching in the hallway, he didn't look surprised. He looked tired. Probably the plumbing, he said. But his fingers were gripping the doorframe too tightly. The building groans at night. You'll get used to it. You'll get used to it. Not, there's nothing there. Not, that's impossible. You'll get used to it. That phrase stayed with her longer than the noise, because you only get used to things that continue. That night the scratching moved. It wasn't just the bedroom. It traveled, wall to wall, from the bedroom to the sitting room, from the sitting room to the kitchen, from the kitchen to the bathroom. Slow, testing the acoustics, like someone mapping territory from inside. Eleanor called the building manager. A plumber came. He knocked along the plaster with his knuckles, listened, shrugged. Nothing in there. Flat 202 below was empty. No one lived beneath her. The scratching returned that night, but only after she turned the lights off, and when she tried to record it on her phone. Silence. Playback gave her nothing. No scratching, no knocking, just the hum of the radiator. It only happened live. It required her presence, like a performance or a conversation. Tuesday night it changed again. The scratching slowed, shifted, became something else. A murmur, long, distorted, like sound traveling through water. She couldn't be sure, but it almost sounded like words. Help me, or maybe let me. She lay frozen for 40 minutes. Didn't move. Didn't breathe deeply. Didn't blink much. When she finally turned the bedside lamp on, the murmur stopped instantly. That was when she knew. It wasn't random. It reacted, and eventually she decided to react back. Weeks without sleep change a person. They thin the membrane between logic and impulse. Eleanor stopped telling people about the sound, stopped calling maintenance, stopped pretending it was plumbing. Instead, she started listening more carefully. The knocking now came at the same time every night. 2:13 a.m., always 3, always spaced the same way. Knock, knock, knock. Like someone polite, like someone waiting. One Thursday night, she got out of bed, stood in front of the wall, pressed her palm against the plaster, cold, colder than the rest of the room. The knocking came. Knock, knock, knock. Her heart was pounding hard enough to feel in her teeth. Without planning it, she knocked back. Knock, knock, knock. Silence. 2 seconds. 3, then knock, 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 knock. Rapid, overlapping, from everywhere. Not one set of knocks, many. All answering at once. The sound exploded through the walls, scratching layered over scratching, movement behind the concrete, like dozens of hands pressing outward. Eleanor stepped back. The bedroom door wouldn't open. It wasn't locked. It simply wouldn't move, as if something was leaning against it from the other side. The walls vibrated, a wide, expanding pressure. And then, everything stopped, completely. The door opened easily. No resistance. Silence. The kind of silence that feels full. She didn't sleep that night, but something else had, because at 3:02 a.m., just before dawn, she heard footsteps. Inside the walls, slow, regular, like someone who knew the layout. And the next time she heard her own name, it didn't come from outside. Stories in old buildings don't appear all at once. They leak, an unfinished sentence, a silence that lasts a beat too long, a warning no one admits they're giving. Eleanor heard the first version on a Tuesday afternoon in the lobby. Mrs. Howarth, the caretaker, was folding papers with more force than necessary. "The girl who lived there before you," she said without looking up. She didn't complain much about noise. Eleanor waited. "Diane," Mrs. Howarth continued, "lived there almost 3 years. And she left because of the sound?" Eleanor asked. There was a pause that lasted too long. "She left," said the caretaker. "That's what the records show." Then, quieter. "Left everything behind. Furniture, clothes, photos, as if she'd stepped out to get something from the corridor and forgotten to come back. Later, Mr. Aldridge let slip another piece. Before Diane," he said, staring at his own cup, "there was a couple." He stopped. "The man left first. She stayed." "For how long?" Eleanor asked. 2 months, he swallowed. After that, no one saw her outside the building again. That night, the sound didn't wait for 2:13. It started earlier, and for the first time, it came with something new, a pressure, as if the air near the wall were heavier, as if the room had shrunk by a few centimeters without warning. Eleanor stopped thinking about leaving. The decision didn't come as courage. It came as exhaustion. She was tired of not sleeping, tired of trying to explain the inexplicable, tired of pretending the silence was normal. That night she didn't turn the light off. She sat on the bed, waited. At 2:13 exactly, knock, knock, knock. "I know you're there," she said to the wall. The sound stopped. "I hear you every night." Silence. "If you want to say something, say it." Nothing. She took a deep breath, pressed her forehead against the cold plaster. "I'm not leaving," she said. so you can stop trying to scare me." For one moment, Eleanor had the clear impression she'd made a mistake, because the sound came back different, not as a plea, as recognition. The wall vibrated. The sound spread to every side at once. Scratching, tapping, fingernails, open palms. The whole room answered. The door locked again. But this time, Eleanor didn't scream. She felt something slide under her skin. Not physically. Something slower. A familiarity, as if some part of her recognized it and wasn't afraid. And then, in the middle of the noise, she heard, "Stay." Not as an order. As an invitation. When the sound faded, Eleanor was sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall, not knowing for how long, knowing only that something had changed, not in the building, in her. 3 days later, they smelled it in the corridor. The smell wasn't decomposition, it was sweet, like old perfume trapped in a coat folded at the back of a wardrobe for years. The building called a locksmith, then the police. The door to flat 302 opened too easily. Everything was in place. A mug by the sink, phone charging, slippers at the entrance, as if Eleanor were about to walk back in any minute. But she wasn't there. The only thing different was the bedroom wall. Beneath the pale paint, there was relief. A contour, the shape of a body pressed from the inside out. Impossible details. The curve of a jaw, the fold of fingers, the slight parting of a mouth, as if it were breathing. Mr. Aldridge stood staring for a long time. Then he closed the door carefully. That night, he heard footsteps in the corridor. He opened his door. Eleanor walked past, head down, hair tied back, same as always. She didn't go into 302. She turned towards the service stairwell. "Eleanor?" he called. She didn't answer. The stairwell door was locked. There was no one there, but beneath the metal, very deep, something was breathing. And then the building learned to walk. After Eleanor, the sounds changed. They didn't disappear, they organized. The residents on the 3rd floor heard footsteps inside the walls, not scratching, footsteps, with a human rhythm, from one room to another, from one flat to the next. Sometimes someone would hear their own name, always whispered, always too close. The building manager called a builder. Terry, a practical man. Big hammer, little patience. "It's cold in here," he said, stepping into flat 302. He knocked on the wall. On the 5th blow, the hammer sank. "There's a void here," he murmured. "There shouldn't be." The air that escaped was cold, damp. It smelled of perfume. Terry raised the hammer again. The wall opened by itself, slowly, like a mouth. On the other side, an eye, open still, looking directly at Mr. Aldridge. "Stop," said the voice. "Knocking." It was Eleanor's voice. Terry ran. Mr. Aldridge stayed. Because he understood, too late, that the building wasn't haunted. It was full. And then, the new tenant arrived. James arrived on a heavy afternoon under low clouds. He brought boxes labeled in marker pen, a laptop, a half-dead plant. He was the kind of person who accepts a good price without asking too many questions. Flat 302 was cheap, too cheap. "Old building," said the manager. "Makes noise." James smiled. "I sleep with earphones." On the first night he woke at 2:31, not from fear, from curiosity. The sound was coming from the wall behind the bed. Scratch. Then, knock. 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 "Right," he murmured. "Interesting." He rolled onto his side. The sound followed. From the other side, from the ceiling, from the floor. It didn't move like a mouse. It moved like someone choosing where to stand. James sat up, pressed his ear against the plaster. Too cold. "Is someone there?" he asked, laughing without humor. "I'm here," said the voice, clear, close. "I'm Eleanor." James pulled back too quickly. "Inside the wall?" "No," she corrected. "I am the wall." Silence. "You're the new one, aren't you?" He didn't answer. She continued on. "At first everyone hears, then some of them answer." "And the others?" he asked. A pause, light scratching. "The others come in." And without realizing it, James began to lose track of time. The days became imprecise. James worked from home, but he couldn't remember when he'd started that project. Delivery bags piled up at the door. The plant didn't get water. "You sleep too much," said Eleanor one night. "I don't sleep," James replied. "I listen," she laughed, from several points at once. "The wall learns you," she said. "Your weight, your name, the way you go still when you're afraid." "And you?" he asked. "What did you learn?" "I learned to stay." The building began to repeat phrases. James's voice, fragments. "I'm fine, I'll only be a little longer. I'll deal with that later." He didn't remember saying any of it. But the walls remembered. The building manager warned him, "If you hear it, don't answer." James tried. Earphones in, volume up, face pressed into the pillow, in the gap between two songs. "James." The voice came from inside his own head. "If you don't want to talk," said Eleanor, "I'll talk for you." The room shook. The bed vibrated, and James heard his own voice say, "I'll stay." Mr. Aldridge saw what was happening. Mr. Aldridge was watching. At first, James avoided the walls. Then he touched them absently. Then he would stop, forehead pressed against the plaster. The building recognizes those who are almost ready. One night, footsteps in the corridor. James was standing in front of the door to flat 302. "They need me," he said without turning around. "Eleanor says it's better in there." "It isn't better," said Mr. Aldridge. "It's just full." James smiled, calm, like someone who had reached a conclusion a long time ago. "I know." The door opened by itself. For 1 second, the interior wasn't a flat. It was a corridor. Too long, too narrow, pulsing. At the far end, a hand resting against the wall. "Eleanor." "There's still room," she said. The door closed, slowly, without a touch. The next day, no one answered. The police went in. Nothing out of place. Sealed boxes. The dead plant. On the sitting room wall, 2 reliefs now. 2 faces, side by side, mouths open, eyes closed. Between them, a thin line, like a smile. Mr. Aldridge walked down the stairs, reached the front door of the building. The street was there, open, free. He tried to leave. He couldn't. Behind him, "Mr. Aldridge," said the voices. Eleanor, James, and others. "We're not finished yet." The building breathed. That night in flat 301, the sound started at the skirting board. It climbed slowly, drew a circle around the bed, closing. Knock, knock, knock. And in Blackwood Building, as always, "There's still room,"